Hey friends, welcome back to a new video. Today I thought why not do another book recommendation video. I know you guys really liked the last book recommendation video that I made, and today I have implored the help of my boyfriend, Johannes.
Hi.
I would say he is kind of my go-to book expert. I always come to you when I want to read a new book and ask him for recommendations. So for today's video, I asked him to pick out two books, one fiction, one non-fiction, that he would recommend to me, and I did the same thing, picked out two books that I would recommend him to read. We both haven't read the books before that we're going to recommend each other, and at the same time I thought this is most likely also going to be a great recommendation for you guys. Maybe you guys haven't read this book yet. So yeah, let's dive right in. So I'm going to start with the non-fiction book. So the non-fiction book that I picked out is Anne Frank's Diary. This is a book I think that especially many Germans have already read, since it does have to do with a big part of German history. So this book, as I said, is non-fiction, and it is a diary of Anne Frank. She's a 13-year-old girl during the Second World War, and she and her family had to go into hiding to hide from the Nazis so they wouldn't be captured. And what she writes about is just her kind of daily routine. They hide in their hideout with, I think, one or two other families. I can't really remember. But it's multiple people, and they just talk about their routines, how they get their food, and what precautionary things they have to look out for in order not to get caught, and also just what they do day to day just to pass the time, since they're hiding there for a very long time. But she also writes about kind of how she feels during this process, maybe struggles that she has internally, mentally, or fights that she has with the other that are hiding there with them. And she writes in her diary without any intention of anyone other than herself reading it, which is also why it's a very personal book. You have a very personal view into her world and her mind. So personally, I would highly recommend this book. I know you haven't read this, because for one, I really love books that are written from a child's perspective, and she is just very mature beyond her years. You can tell when she's writing. She's an incredibly good writer. She can really put her thoughts and her feelings into words very well. And yeah, I remember when I read this, I kept on forgetting that this was actually a 13-year-old child writing this, because she's just so mature, and the thoughts that she has is also very mature. And I think that we can learn a lot from how she handles things, how mature she is. And this is one of the many reasons why I really like this book. And I also really like how funny she is. I think she's quite a funny young girl with a lot of humor, and I really enjoy that, since it is kind of set in a very dark time and dark place. And all in all, I just think it's a very interesting and educational book, and it is a very unique insight we have into that period of time, but also, as I said, since it is such a personal story and book, it is really interesting how one copes with such a difficult and weird situation. So yeah, I really highly recommend this book. It is also a book I would personally reread multiple times.
So yeah, this is a book that I have been planning to read for a while. I think this is probably one of the books that everybody should read at one point in their life, especially for Germans, because of our history, how it's connected to the events back then, and also the history of my own family. My grandfather fought in World War II. My great-grandfather was a Jew, so I kind of am very connected to this period of history myself. And so yeah, this is definitely a book that I am going to read.
So the next book that is going to be a fiction book I'm going to recommend to you is To Kill a Mockingbird. So this book is actually a book that you gifted to me, and it is also a classic, I would say. So this is To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee, and this book was published in 1960, and in 1961 this book actually won the Pulitzer Prize. So this book is set in the 1930s, and it is told out of the perspective of a little girl that is 6 years old, and her name is Scott. Well, her nickname is Scott. No, her nickname is Scout.
Scott.
Okay. Scott ist bei ihm.
Scott ist voll der Männername. Scott kann kein Spitzname für eine Frau sein. Das würde man eine Frau Robert nennen oder so als Spitzname.
So this story is told through the eye of the little girl nicknamed Scout, and this is set kind of in the more suburban areas in America in the 1930s, and she just talks about kind of her day-to-day life, what's going on with her brother. But even though this is kind of set in a very happy, innocent frame, since it's told from a little girl, it also talks about more serious subjects such as rape and discrimination or racism. Once again, this is a book that is told from a child's perspective, so I feel like for me personally this is a theme that I really enjoy. I feel like books that are told from a child's perspective are often told in a more happy and innocent manner, and I really enjoy that. I feel like adults often have a lot of worry and judgment on certain topics, so that's something I really enjoy in this book, how she views very adult topics such as rape, I would say. A quote that I think really sums that up, that says, "You never really understand a person until you consider things from his point of view, until you climb into his skin and walk around in it." And I really like that quote from this book. And also another lesson I feel like this book really taught me personally is that you don't need to follow what other people are doing just because this is the societal norm. You can definitely challenge the status quo if what everyone else is doing is against kind of your beliefs and your norms. And this is something that Scout's father is trying to teach his children. There are lots of different kind of life lessons that he tries to pass on into his children. And another quote that I want to read that kind of sums that up is, "Before I can live with other folks, I've got to live with myself. The one thing that doesn't abide by majority rule is a person's conscience." And I think that sums it up quite beautifully. Yeah, and I personally think you're going to really enjoy this book, especially the father figure in this book, in the ways that he kind of passes his wisdom on to his children. So I would definitely recommend you read this book.
Thank you. Yeah, there's also a book that already is on my reading list. That's one of the reasons I bought it to you as a gift.
Just so you could read it.
Yeah, it's always when I give books, I always try to think of books that I think are of value to you, but that are also interesting for me to read, so they can do about double duty, kind of, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but you also wouldn't gift a book that you wouldn't read.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think when you look online for lists of the greatest books of all time, this is always on them, pretty close to the top. So this is absolutely a book that I'm going to read, and I can't wait.
Okay, so on to your recommendations.
Okay, the first book that I'm going to recommend to you is Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse. He's one of the great German writers. This story is set in the time of the Buddha, and it's kind of inspired by Buddhist philosophy and by Eastern philosophy in general. So this book is about the boy named Siddhartha. He's a Brahmin who comes from a wealthy family in India, and in his community he's taught the Brahmin kind of teaching of wisdom, but he always knows that there's more to it, and in his village he's admired by everybody because he's so wise and so good and everything, but he knows deep down inside that there's more to it, and that the things he's learning in his village are not the complete truth. So he sets out on a journey through the world on a quest to find peace and wisdom and enlightenment. And on this journey all kind of things happens to him. He meets various kind of people who teach him their version of wisdom, but he knows that on some level he has to find it on his own, and he can't just take another man's teaching and just adopt it. He has to find his own path to wisdom, and on this path he falls into all the kind of traps that we fall into in our everyday life, like materialism and relationships and all those things, and how they distract him from his goal but also help him to achieve it and show him what really matters. this is just a great book for everybody who thinks there might be more to life and who wants to achieve peace and enlightenment for himself, so to speak. I actually read in Tim Ferriss's book, Tools of Titans, that this book is one of the books his podcast guests recommend the most often. And I can totally understand why. It's such a beautiful book. It's very simple, but at the same time very profound. And yeah, I think it's a book that most people would benefit from reading.
Thank you. Would you say it's kind of like The Alchemist from the vibe of the story a little bit, or is it quite different?
I would say it's different. The book is a lot older than The Alchemist. It has more of a classic literature feel to it, while The Alchemist is more of a popular fiction kind of book, and this is more like classic literature, I would say. But the theme maybe is a little bit similar, going out and finding your own path.
I might enjoy this. I really like The Alchemist, as you guys will probably know from the last video of my book recommendations. And this is also kind of more of a short read. So yeah, thank you.
So the second book that I'm going to recommend to you is Deep Work by Cal Newport. It's a book about productivity, but not like gimmicky time management tricks and tips, but like on a deeper level, it talks about the importance of being able to focus on a task completely without any distraction, not only for being more productive, but also for being more creative and achieving just better results. In the first part of this book, he talks about why this is so important, why the ability to focus is so crucial in these times. And he gives a lot of examples about people who use deep work to achieve great things. And in the second part, he goes more into detail about the specific steps that everybody can take to make deep work a part of their lives, a part of their work. And overall, it's just a really nice mix of productivity tips and personal development tips, but there's also an element of cultural criticism. He talks a lot about how deep work or how focused work is not very valued these days, and how there's so much distractions around all the time, how we have smartphones and social media who are constantly distracting us from our work and from the things that really matter. And even in the workplace, how our offices are now organized as open plan offices, where you never really have a moment just to focus, and there's constantly phones ringing, people coming by, and you're always distracted. But if you want to achieve great results in a creative field or just achieve any great cognitive task, deep work is really important. And in this book, Cal Newport shows how you can do this even in today's distracted world. And I think this would be very beneficial to you, because I think you often fall victim to many of the distractions of the modern days, including smartphones and social media. So I think this would really help you.
Thank you. Yeah, it definitely sounds intriguing. I would also say that I'm easily distracted by things, especially kind of technology and things like that. I also talked about that in my latest no technology video that I will link right here. So yeah, I definitely see this being very interesting, but also helpful. I know that you definitely raved about this when you read this. So yeah, I'm really intrigued. I have to put this on my next to read list. Thank you for recommending that. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. I think that we have recommended a few very interesting classic must-read books. So I hope that you guys maybe thought some of these books were interesting. Let me know in the comments, or let us know in the comments below if one of these books intrigued you. If you're interested in reading one of those books, I will of course leave the link to those books down below in the description box. If you like this video, if you like book recommendation videos, or if you like videos that I make with my boyfriend, then be sure to give it a thumbs up and let me know. And if you want to see more videos that I make on either minimalism or self-help or just health and recipes and cooking tips kind of thing, be sure to check out my channel because I post twice weekly. And yeah, thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!
Bye!